Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the structure of informal reports. Now, as I talked about in my video introducing informal reports, there's an incredibly broad range of informal reports, both content that they might cover, forms they might be presented in or submitted in, whatever it is. And so it's very difficult to talk in absolute generalities about informal reports. Rather, what we can do is talk about general trends, things that are typically included in an informal report in order to make this comprehensible to readers. So basically, the structure of an informal report has 3 to 3.5 to 4 parts, depending on how you're breaking it up. For a verbal presentation, this doesn't matter that much in terms of dividing the 3rd to 4th section. But for a written report, if you're writing section headings or something like this, you may divide these sections in different ways. So you've got the introduction, the body of the report, and then conclusions and recommendations, or conclusions, and then a separate recommendations section, depending on how you want to divide it. So if it's an informative report, right, like an incident report or an action report or something like that, where you're just telling us, here's what happened, conclusions section is going to be sufficient. On the other hand, if it's an argumentative report or a proposal or something like this, where you are suggesting some sort of change, then you will want a recommendations section. But we'll get there. So the introduction, this is meant to set up and anticipate the action of the report as a whole. So it's got 2 major tasks: to identify the subject matter, to tell us what you're actually writing about, and then to establish your purpose in writing. Is this to inform, to persuade, to establish the facts of something? Is this to recommend? Is this to advocate? Whatever it is. What is it you're trying to do? So that's the 2 most crucial things that the introduction should do, is tell us, what is this report about, and what are you trying to achieve? This is basic sort of rhetoric stuff, right? You want to start by establishing why we should even pay attention to this thing. In addition to that, there's some other things you probably want to consider depending on the purpose of this report. So you may talk about the scope of what you have investigated or the data you've collected or whatever it is. That can be chronological time, that can be depth of funding, or depths of profit margin. What swath of the company were you looking at? If it was like a cybersecurity thing, how many computers or computer systems did you investigate? Whatever it is. So basically, what's the range of your investigation? How broadly applicable is the data you've collected? You may provide background information. As always, you have to figure out what background, what context does your audience need in order to understand the rest of the report, particularly conclusions and recommendations. So what context do we need? Do we need historical background? Do we need cultural background? Do we need financial background, legal background? What kind of information do we need that existed prior to whatever it is you're investigating? It's probably wise to provide a summary of the conclusions and or recommendations. This aligns with a very traditional approach to rhetoric, which is the tell us what you're going to tell us, tell us what you told us approach, right? This is very, very easy for readers because it centers the main pieces of information that we actually need. So I would typically tie this to your purpose. Something like, this report will attempt to, or this, just go ahead and say it. This report will persuade you to adopt these recommended solutions on the basis of these conclusions. That kind of thing, right? You give us that at the beginning, and that makes the rest of the information in the body of the report into the conclusions and recommendations comprehensible. The other thing that you may choose to do, especially if this is a longer report, a longer informal report, right? If it's like 2 paragraphs, you probably don't need to do this, but if it's 10 pages, this may be useful, is to discuss the format or the structure of the report. How are you moving through information? And this can be a basic sort of rhetorical roadmap. First, this report will talk about this, then it will talk about this, then it will conclude this, then it will recommend this, whatever it is. You could do a table of contents, or you could come up with some other structure that basically sort of previews what we're getting, again, so that we as readers have a sense of how we're moving through information and why we're moving through information in that way. So that's the basic elements of the intro. The body of the report is going to be going to be fairly straightforward. You want to present the subject. So present the actual information that you've gathered. Provide evidence for your ultimate conclusions and interpret that evidence. Explain why that evidence is important. What is its significance? How does it connect to the claims that you're making in the report or the conclusions that you're drawing, whatever it is? What does it mean, right? This also may be a place where you incorporate visuals to support your analysis, if that's appropriate for the particular format that you are using. Sometimes reports will benefit from having charts, graphs, tables, whatever it is, laying out data, laying out information to support those arguments. And sometimes they will not. Sometimes that will not be something that you would want. But that's basically what the body does, right? Is it builds the actual argument itself. Then if you move into the conclusions section, and I'm going to treat conclusions and recommendations as 2 separate sections, but again, you may just have a conclusions section if this is an informative report. You may combine conclusions and recommendations, or you may have conclusions and then recommendations. So conclusions does exactly what it says on the tin. You tell us what your findings are and what is the significance of those findings. What did you discover? What information should we conclude? Hence the term conclusions. And why does it matter? What difference does it make? What does it tell us that this conclusion is the best reading of the data? So that's the 2 basic things in conclusions, right? And this will, of course, involve more interpretation, explanation, etc., particularly when you are establishing the significance of the findings, right? Because you have to say, this is what we found, this is why it matters, this is how we know why it matters, right? So you need that interpretation of the findings and their importance. Then the recommendations section will build from the information you have concluded. It will build from that section. And it will propose actions to take and give a rationale for those actions. So based on the conclusions that we have drawn over the course of this investigation, we recommend that that the company adopt this policy, or buy this software or contract with this marketing firm or whatever it is in order to achieve this desired goal, right? So that's part of the rationale, is this question of, based on the conclusions, if we want to get this result, this is what we should do. And the report now lays out the logic of how this action will get us to the desired outcome. That's the rationale, right? We want X, here's how we get it. And here's how we know that this is how we get it. So that's the basic structure of an informal report. Again, some will obviously be much less developed, much shorter, much more sort of quick and easy. Some will be much longer and more developed. And again, you want to be aware of these things, because the amount of depth that you go into will depend on the length and thoroughness of your report. But this basic structure of intro, body, conclusions, and or recommendations is typically going to be the same for informal reports, mostly across the board.